Chosen one, wake up. This is not comfort. This is not motivation. This is a warning wrapped in mercy. You are not stumbling through life because you lack intelligence, talent, or effort. You are stalled because you have been asleep at the most dangerous moments. Patterns keep repeating not because fate is cruel, but because obedience has been delayed. Cycles return when lessons are ignored. Seasons repeat when discernment is postponed. And heaven is sounding an alarm now because the cost of staying asleep is rising. You have felt it, the strange heaviness when you know what to do, yet hesitate. The quiet resistance inside when clarity comes, but action does not follow. You delay the call, and life delays your breakthrough in return. This is how spiritual erosion begins, not with rebellion but with postponement, not with shouting no to God, but with whispering later. Later becomes next year becomes a decade, and suddenly, you are explaining why your life feels stuck while time keeps moving forward without you. This is a wake-up call because the hour you are in does not tolerate indecision. Darkness advances without hesitation. Deception does not pause to let you catch your breath. While you weigh options, the enemy moves with certainty. And every time you ignore conviction, your sensitivity dulls just a little more. You still believe, you still pray, but you don't move. And movement is the proof of faith. Chosen one, you were not created to drift. You were built to discern moments. Some doors only open once. Some warnings are given a single time. Some alignments pass by and never circle back. Grace is patient, yes, but it is not passive. Mercy warns before it withdraws. And what you are hearing right now is not condemnation. It is intervention. You have been looping through the same emotional terrain: hope, frustration, resolve, exhaustion, reset, over and over. Different faces, same story, different year, same ache. And deep down, you know exactly where the loop began. There was a moment you were supposed to choose, a moment you were supposed to stand, a moment you were supposed to walk away, speak up, let go, obey. But fear negotiated with you, comfort reasoned with you, logic softened the edge of conviction, and you stayed still. Stillness can be holy when God commands it, but when God says move, stillness becomes disobedience in disguise. This is why the message is sharp, because your destiny is not fragile, but your timing is. You are not replaceable, but opportunities are not endlessly renewable. Heaven waits, but it does not beg. The longer you delay obedience, the more expensive it becomes. What once required courage will later require sacrifice. What once needed faith will later demand pain. This is not to scare you, it is to sober you. You have been given enough confirmation, enough signs, enough inner knowing. At some point, asking for more clarity becomes avoidance. At some point, prayer becomes procrastination if it is not followed by movement. You do not need another sign. You need alignment. The ancient warning still cuts through time, confronting every wavering heart with uncomfortable clarity. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings on chapter 18, verse 21. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. This is the question echoing over your life right now. How long? How long will you stand between obedience and comfort? How long will you keep one foot in purpose and one foot in fear? Neutral ground does not exist in the spirit. Delay is a decision, silence is a response, and wavering always favors the enemy. Chosen one, this is why you feel restless. This is why distractions no longer satisfy. This is why what used to work no longer works. God is narrowing your path, not punishing you. He is reducing your options so that obedience becomes undeniable. The pressure you feel is not opposition, it is alignment trying to happen. Wake up to this truth: staying asleep costs more than waking up ever will. Obedience may disrupt your routine, but disobedience will dismantle your future. Yes, obedience requires surrender. But delay extracts interest on your soul stress, confusion, stagnation, erosion of confidence. You pay either way. The question is what you are willing to pay. This moment is not random. This message did not reach you by accident. This is the interruption before consequence, the pause before momentum shifts. Mercy has leaned in close and said, "Choose now." Do not numb yourself. Do not scroll past this. Do not promise yourself you will act tomorrow. Tomorrow is not guaranteed alignment. Today is. If this warning resonates, do not keep it to yourself. Like this message, share it with someone who is drifting, and subscribe so you stay connected to what heaven is saying in this season. And if you are ready to break the cycle and choose alignment now, comment 77 as a sign you are awake and willing to obey. You were not only seen, you were marked, long before your first breath, before your name was spoken aloud, before your wounds formed language inside you. Your essence was already known in realms you cannot see. This is why your life has never felt ordinary. This is why comfort has always felt temporary, and fitting in has always felt like betrayal. You were identified in a moment of cosmic fracture, when loyalty was tested and rebellion exposed itself. The ancient visions speak of a separation that did not happen on earth first, but in the heavens. There were watchers who abandoned their post, who crossed boundaries they were never authorized to cross. They chose appetite over assignment, power over obedience, and judgment followed, not slowly, not vaguely, but decisively. Order was restored by removal. Light did not negotiate with corruption, it separated from it. And in that same vision of separation, you appear not as a fallen one, but as a preserved one. This is why you have always felt the tension. You grew up sensing things others laughed at. You discerned motives before people revealed them. You felt disturbed by environments that energized others. You questioned systems everyone else accepted. That wasn't rebellion, that was recognition. Your spirit remembers the cost of disobedience because it witnessed its consequences. You were marked among the fall, not to participate in it, but to stand as evidence against it. This is why temptation has always targeted you differently, not louder, subtler, not blatant, reasonable. You were never tempted merely to sin. You were tempted to compromise, to blur lines, to reinterpret boundaries, to justify small crossings that lead to greater erosion. The same pattern that caused the watchers to fall is the same pattern that has tried to lure you. It's not that serious. Others are doing it. You deserve this, but your conscience has never gone quiet. Conviction follows you closely. Even when you ran, it ran faster. Even when you numbed yourself, something inside stayed awake. That is not guilt, that is guardianship. Chosen one, you carry a holy intolerance for disorder. You feel discomfort when truth is twisted, when authority is abused, when power is taken without permission. That is because your soul was calibrated in a realm where boundaries mattered, where roles were sacred, where assignment was everything. You have often wondered why you faced resistance early, why childhood felt heavier than it should have, why responsibility found you before readiness, why joy felt delayed while lessons arrived early. It is because those who are marked are trained differently. You were hardened before deployment, tempered before use, exposed to pressure early so that pressure would not break you later. The watchers fell because they abandoned order. You were preserved because you are wired to restore it. This is also why isolation has followed you, not loneliness but separation. You have often found yourself removed from groups without explanation. Friendships faded, doors closed, paths diverged. At times it felt like rejection, but it was actually protection. You could not be allowed to bond deeply with what was going to fall. You could not be anchored to systems scheduled for collapse. Your life has been a series of divine extractions, each one painful, each one necessary. You are not here to blend in during an age of confusion. You are here to stand as contrast. The reason chaos exhausts you is because you were not built for it. The reason corruption angers you is because you have seen what it destroys. The reason compromise sickens you is because you know where it leads. Oh, and heaven has not forgotten the rebellion. It has not dismissed it as ancient history. The record remains. The consequence remains. The warning remains. The ancient apostle articulated this spiritual law with sobering clarity, and his words still burn with relevance today. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 1, verse 28, furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. This is the danger you have been guarded from, not sudden evil, but gradual surrender. Being given over does not happen overnight. It happens when conviction is repeatedly ignored, when truth is repeatedly softened, when obedience is repeatedly postponed. You were marked so that this would not be your ending. That is why correction has always come quickly to you. Others get away with things for years. You are confronted within days. Others drift comfortably. You feel unrest immediately. That is not unfairness, it is favor with responsibility. You are not allowed to wander far because your assignment is too important. You were present in essence when order was violated, and now you are present in flesh to uphold it. This is why darkness notices you. You disrupt environments without speaking. Your presence exposes imbalance. Your questions threaten unstable structures. You carry authority you did not learn, you remember it. And this remembrance irritates forces that thrive on disorder. But understand this clearly: being marked does not mean being exempt. It means being accountable. You are held to a higher standard because you were entrusted with greater awareness. You cannot pretend ignorance. You cannot claim blindness. You have seen too much, felt too much, discerned too much. And this is why the warning matters. Because those who witnessed rebellion and still choose compromise face consequences deeper than those who never knew better. You were preserved not to flirt with the edge, but to stand far from it. Your life is evidence that heaven still separates light from darkness, that obedience still matters, that assignment is still sacred. You are not late, you are not lost, but you are standing in a narrow window where memory must turn into movement. Awareness must become alignment. Knowing must become choosing. The watchers fell because they crossed lines they were warned not to cross. You will rise because you refuse to. You have often asked why your life felt delayed while others seemed to advance effortlessly. Why their paths unfolded quickly while yours moved in slow, uneven rhythms. This was not because you were forgotten. It was because you were hidden. Delay was not rejection, it was protection wrapped in discipline. There is a sacred difference between being postponed and being prepared. Postponement produces frustration. Preparation produces depth. Your life has been marked by depth. You were given time to develop roots before being exposed to wind. Others were elevated quickly and shattered quietly. You were preserved quietly so you could stand publicly later. You were hidden because visibility would have cost you your integrity too early. What you carry attracts attention, and attention before maturity invites distortion. Heaven does not rush vessels meant to carry weight. Speed fractures what depth sustains. This is why your journey felt non-linear. Advancement followed by silence. Insight followed by waiting. Opportunity followed by restraint. You assumed you were off track. In truth, you were being trained not to depend on momentum, but on instruction. When nothing moved around you, something was being anchored within you. Delay sharpened your discernment. You learned to recognize timing, not just opportunity. You learned that not every open door is yours, and not every closed door is rejection. You learned that obedience sometimes looks like stillness, and faith sometimes sounds like silence. You were hidden because certain environments would have rewarded the wrong version of you. Certain relationships would have celebrated your gifting while neglecting your character. Certain platforms would have amplified your voice before anchoring your soul. So heaven slowed your exposure until your identity stabilized. What felt like isolation was actually insulation. You have shed versions of yourself repeatedly. Old dreams expired. Old ambitions lost their appeal. Old identities collapsed before they could fully form. You thought you lacked consistency. In reality, refinement was happening. What could not survive where you were going was removed early. Hidden seasons strip illusions. They expose why you do what you do. When success is delayed, motives surface. When recognition is withheld, obedience is tested. Heaven watches how you steward obscurity because obscurity reveals what applause conceals. There were moments you nearly surrendered not to sin, but to discouragement. Moments you questioned whether obedience was worth the loneliness. Moments you wondered if you misunderstood your calling entirely. Yet even when you paused, you did not abandon the path. You stayed receptive. You stayed reachable. And that mattered. Staying matters more than speed. The waiting strengthened you in ways visibility never could. It trained your restraint. It burned impatience out of your spirit. It taught you to move when instructed, not when pressured. You learned to value alignment over acceleration. This principle has always governed divine timing, and the ancient writings speak clearly about it. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 5, "Therefore judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart." Notice the language, appointed time. What is hidden? Motives of the heart. Delay is not emptiness, it is concealment until readiness meets timing. Exposure without alignment reveals weakness. Revelation at the appointed time reveals strength. Your hidden years were not wasted. They were investigative. Heaven examined what lived beneath your desires. Why you wanted what you wanted. Whether you could be trusted with influence without being consumed by it. Whether you would obey when nobody was watching. This is why movement, when it comes, will feel sudden. Others will call it luck. You will recognize it as release. What looks like overnight elevation will actually be years of unseen formation coming into agreement with timing. But here is the critical moment you are approaching. What protected you in delay can restrain you if you cling to it too long. Hiddenness is a season, not an identity. Preparation must eventually turn into obedience. Waiting must give way to movement. Many fail here, not because they were unprepared, but because they grew comfortable being unseen. Safety can become a hiding place. Delay can become an excuse, and caution can quietly replace obedience. You are now being asked to move without perfect certainty, to act without full confirmation, to step forward without knowing how others will respond. This is where trust becomes visible. This is where hidden strength activates. If this resonates, comment "I am aligned." This phrase is short, but its meaning is weighty. It declares that you recognize the season is shifting, and you refuse to retreat into delay now that clarity has arrived. It is not about public display, it is about personal agreement with timing. You were hidden to be preserved. Now you are being released to be effective. And this transition will require courage, not speed, not noise, but obedience. There comes a moment in every divine timeline when heaven sends a voice before it sends a shift. Not a king, not a ruler, not a system, a voice. And that voice does not arrive clothed in comfort or crowned with approval. It arrives rough, urgent, uncompromising because it stands between what was and what is coming next. This is where your story aligns with the story of John the Baptist. John was not the Messiah, yet history could not move forward without him. He was the final sound of an old age and the last warning before a new one broke open. He stood at the edge of eras, not to be celebrated, but to prepare, not to be understood, but to awaken. His assignment was not longevity, it was precision. John did not come from the center. He came from the wilderness, from obscurity, from silence, from a place where reputation did not matter and survival depended on obedience. This alone tells you something crucial when God prepares a generation for transition. He often speaks first through those who have learned to live without applause. John's message was simple, but it was sharp. Repent, realign, prepare. He did not entertain the crowd. He confronted it. He did not negotiate truth. He announced it. And many were offended because he did not sound like what they expected a holy man to sound like. He did not validate their traditions. He exposed their distance from God. This is why religious systems resisted him more than sinners did. Sinners recognized honesty. Systems feared disruption. John stood in the Jordan calling people out of cycles they had normalized. He was not gentle about it. He called comfort hypocrisy. He called status empty. He called lineage insufficient. Do not say you have Abraham as your father, he warned. In other words, do not hide behind spiritual history when obedience is required now. And this is the parallel to you. You are living in a generation that wants inspiration without repentance, spirituality without surrender, awakening without accountability. And like John, you feel the weight of that contradiction. You are not satisfied with surface-level faith. You are disturbed by performances that lack power. You sense that something is about to shift and that people are unprepared. John understood something most never grasp. Being chosen does not guarantee being preserved. Being sent does not guarantee being spared. His obedience placed him at the center of destiny, but also at the edge of danger. He spoke truth knowing it would cost him safety. He confronted Herod not because it was strategic, but because it was right. And righteousness without compromise is always dangerous to corrupt power. This is where the cost becomes clear. John fulfilled his assignment, but he did not live to see the age fully unfold. He baptized Jesus but did not walk in the fullness of what Jesus released. He prepared the way but did not walk the road himself. And this is where many misunderstand calling. Calling is not about personal reward. It is about generational transition. Some are assigned to build. Others are assigned to break ground. Others are assigned to warn. John was a voice, not a monument. Jesus himself confirmed this weighty truth, anchoring John's role forever in sacred history. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 11. Truly I tell you, among those born of women there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. This statement is stunning. John was great not because of miracles, wealth, or longevity, but because of obedience to assignment. And yet, he stood at the threshold of something he would not fully experience. That is the price of being a transitional voice. Chosen one. This is why your life has felt heavy with urgency. You are not meant to drift comfortably into the future. You are meant to confront, to prepare, to awaken. You are not here to be popular, you are here to be precise. And precision often looks like loneliness. Like John, you may feel misunderstood. You may feel too intense for some, too honest for others, too disruptive for systems that benefit from sleep. That does not make you wrong. It makes you early. John did not soften his message to extend his lifespan. He did not dilute truth to preserve relevance. He spoke what was required for the moment he was sent into. And when his voice was silenced, the transition still came. Jesus still emerged. The kingdom still advanced. This should sober you and strengthen you, because your obedience matters even if you are not celebrated for it. Your clarity matters even if others resist it. Your willingness to speak, to stand, to prepare others matters beyond your lifetime. You are not called to replace Christ. You are called to point to him. You are not called to be the center. You are called to say, "He must increase, I must decrease." That statement alone reveals the heart of a true forerunner. And yes, this calling is costly. It will demand humility without recognition, courage without guarantees, faithfulness without applause, but it will also anchor you in eternity. If this message is sharpening your discernment, if it is helping you recognize the season you are standing in, then I invite you gently and sincerely to support this work. Like and share this message so it reaches others who are sensing the same urgency, but cannot yet name it. And subscribe to remain connected as these truths continue to unfold, not for growth alone, but for alignment. John's voice echoed once and history turned. Your voice may not sound the same. Your platform may look different, but the assignment is familiar. Prepare the way. Wake the sleeping. Stand at the edge of the old and announce the coming of the new. You are not here by accident. You are here on purpose at the threshold. There is a moment when recognition stops being external and becomes internal. Not when people finally see you, but when you finally accept what you carry. This is the turning point for every chosen one, and it is where many retreat. Because accepting calling is heavier than longing for it. Desire feels safe. Acceptance demands responsibility. You have reached the stage where denial no longer works. You can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer pretend you are just passing through life. Too many confirmations have accumulated. Too many patterns have repeated. Too many warnings have interrupted your comfort. Something inside you knows this is no longer preparation alone, this is positioning. The remnant is never large. It never blends in. It never moves by consensus. The remnant moves by conviction. And conviction is costly because it separates you from crowds, trends, and familiar applause. You begin to realize that your calling will require you to stand firm while others negotiate, to remain clear while others blur lines, to choose obedience when compromise would be easier. This is why resistance has increased, not because you are losing ground, but because you are nearing alignment. Pressure intensifies near purpose. Confusion escalates before clarity locks in. Opposition grows loud when time grows short. What you are experiencing now is not random spiritual turbulence, it is confirmation that you are close to assignment. The remnant always feels out of place before revelation. You sense that systems are cracking. Old assurances feel unstable. Narratives you once trusted no longer ring true. You see through facades faster. You question motives deeper. This is not cynicism, it is discernment sharpening. But discernment without courage becomes torment. You were never meant to simply see what is wrong. You were meant to stand for what is right. And standing requires a decision. Not later. Not eventually. Now. The danger at this stage is hesitation disguised as wisdom. Overthinking disguised as patience. Silence disguised as humility. You wait for perfect conditions, but perfect conditions never arrive for those called to confront darkness. You move when instructed, not when comfortable. This is where the warning intensifies, because those who know truth and delay alignment risk spiritual dullness. Conviction ignored does not disappear, it weakens. And a weakened conscience is more dangerous than open rebellion. Open rebellion can repent. Dullness rarely does. A hardened heart does not happen in crisis, it happens in comfort. It forms when conviction knocks and you silence it with distraction. When truth surfaces and you explain it away. Every delay leaves a thin layer of resistance until hearing God no longer feels urgent, but optional. The remnant remains tender because it chooses pain over numbness. It allows correction to wound pride before pride wounds destiny. Softness toward God is not weakness, it is sensitivity. And sensitivity is what keeps you responsive when heaven speaks only once and does not repeat itself. Pressure will always test what your heart values most. If approval matters more than obedience, pressure will bend you. If safety matters more than truth, pressure will silence you. But if alignment matters most, pressure will reveal strength you did not know you carried. The ancient warning still speaks with precision into moments like this. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 95, verse 8, "Do not harden your hearts as you did at Meribah, as you did that day at Massa in the wilderness." Hardened hearts are not born, they are formed. Formed by repeated delay. Formed by rationalized disobedience. Formed by saying later to what requires now. The remnant is defined by softness toward God and firmness toward pressure. You cannot afford to reverse that order. You are being invited, not forced into alignment. Heaven does not coerce obedience. It honors choice. But understand this clearly, refusing the call does not cancel it. It transfers the weight elsewhere, and you carry the loss of what could have been. This is why the urgency feels personal. This is why the message feels like it is speaking directly to you. This is not about fear, it is about timing. Windows do not remain open indefinitely. Assignments do not wait forever. And while grace is abundant, moments are specific. You have been sensing the narrowing, options falling away, distractions losing appeal, relationships shifting. This is not collapse, it is concentration. Your life is being simplified so your obedience can be clarified. The remnant always walks through this narrowing. Gideon experienced it. Elijah lived it. John embodied it. Fewer voices, fewer comforts, fewer guarantees, but greater authority, greater clarity, greater impact. You are not being stripped to be diminished. You are being refined to be effective. Now comes the internal decision: will you step fully into alignment? Or will you hover at the edge of calling? Hovering feels safer, but it drains you. Partial obedience produces constant unrest. Full obedience produces peace even when circumstances are hard. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the absence of division within. This is why you are being asked to respond not to me, not to a platform, but to the conviction stirring inside you. A response anchors decision, but it marks moments. It turns awareness into agreement. If this message confirms what you already know deep inside, comment 333. This number is not symbolic magic, it is a marker, a way of saying I recognize the alignment being asked of me, and I choose not to delay. Writing it becomes a line drawn between hesitation and obedience. The remnant does not wait to be pushed. It moves when called. You are closer than you think, and the decision before you matters more than you realize. What you tolerate quietly will eventually govern you openly. This is why the battle you are in right now is not dramatic, loud, or obvious. It is subtle. It hides in habits, thoughts, rationalizations, and small allowances you make when no one is watching. Cutting off compromise is not about avoiding catastrophe later, it is about protecting clarity now. Small compromises never announce their destination. They present themselves as exceptions, rewards, or necessities. Just this once, it's not that serious. Everyone does it, but compromise is never static. What begins as permission becomes pattern. What becomes pattern becomes posture, and posture shapes destiny. The instruction before you is practical, not mystical. You are being asked to audit your life honestly, not others' lives, yours. Where have you lowered standards you once held sacred? Where have you stopped resisting things that once disturbed you? Where have you explained away discomfort instead of addressing its source? Compromise often hides in routine, in what you consume daily, in the conversations you allow, in the environments you repeatedly return to, in the tone you permit inside your own thoughts. You do not fall suddenly, you drift incrementally. This is why the first step is awareness without self-deception. You must stop calling survival growth if it required you to shrink. You must stop calling tolerance wisdom if it demanded silence where truth was required. You must stop calling delay discernment if conviction is already spoken. Cutting off small compromises requires you to act early, not dramatically. You do not wait until damage is visible. You respond when tension appears. That tension is a signal, not an inconvenience. It is the alarm that alignment is being threatened. Practically, this means setting boundaries before you feel strong. Boundaries are not proof of strength. They are protection while strength is forming. You remove access to what weakens you, not because you hate it, but because you respect what you are becoming. Some compromises are relational. People who normalize what you are called to resist. Conversations that slowly erode clarity. Humor that desensitizes conscience. Advice that sounds reasonable but pulls you away from obedience. You are not required to confront everyone, but you are required to choose proximity wisely. Some compromises are internal. Thought patterns you entertain repeatedly. Justifications you rehearse. Comparisons you revisit. Imaginations that pull you out of presence. These are not harmless. What you rehearse internally becomes permission externally. Cutting these off means interrupting them early. You do not debate every thought, you redirect it. You do not analyze every feeling, you assess its fruit. Does it lead you toward clarity or confusion? Toward obedience or avoidance? Toward humility or entitlement? Other compromises are behavioral. Habits you know dull your sensitivity. Rhythms that keep you distracted instead of grounded. Choices that trade long-term alignment for short-term relief. These are often defended with exhaustion. I'm tired. I deserve this. I'll fix it later. But later is how compromise survives. The discipline here is replacement, not just removal. You do not simply cut something off, you fill the space with something aligned. Silence replaced with prayer. Distraction replaced with stillness. Consumption replaced with reflection. Isolation replaced with accountability. Accountability is not control, it is clarity shared. You are not meant to fight erosion alone. Even the strongest structures collapse without reinforcement. Choose voices that sharpen you, not soothe you into complacency. You will notice resistance when you begin to cut things off. Not always external, often internal. Discomfort, irritation, restlessness. This does not mean you are wrong. It means dependence is being exposed. Compromise resists eviction. Do not wait to feel motivated. Obedience often precedes emotional agreement. You move first, clarity follows. Momentum is built through consistency, not intensity. The ancient wisdom warned clearly about the power of small beginnings and quiet erosion. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23 above all else. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding is active, not passive. It assumes threat. It assumes value. You guard what matters because loss would be costly. Your heart is not just emotion, it is the command center of your decisions. What enters it determines what exits your life. This is why you cannot afford to be casual anymore. Casualness is expensive for those with assignment. What others recover from easily may derail you significantly. This is not favoritism, it is responsibility. You are not being asked to become extreme. You are being asked to become precise. Precision is what keeps power from becoming destructive. Precision is what allows longevity. Practically, this season requires daily examination, not self-accusation, alignment checks. Asking simple questions. Did this draw me closer to clarity or pull me into fog? Did this strengthen discipline or excuse weakness? Did this choice align with who I am becoming? You course correct early. You apologize quickly. You detach without drama. You choose differently the next time. This is how compromise is starved before it grows teeth. Remember, you are not cutting things off to prove holiness. You are cutting them off to protect function. A dull blade cannot cut, no matter how sincere the wielder. Sharpness requires maintenance. This is not punishment. This is stewardship. Small compromises want time. You remove them now, because what you allow quietly today will speak loudly through your life tomorrow. You were never meant to survive this journey unnoticed, hidden. Yes, but not forgotten. Delayed. Yes, but not denied. What waited for you at the end of obedience was never exhaustion. It was authority. The crown was never for spectacle. It was for stewardship. A crown in the language of heaven is not decoration. It is responsibility granted after testing. It is trust restored after endurance. It is weight placed only on those whose necks have been strengthened by humility and restraint. This is why the process mattered. This is why the pressure mattered. This is why compromise had to be cut off before it could shape you. You are approaching the moment where preparation turns into placement. The crown reserved for you is not like the crowns of this world. It is not built on applause, dominance, or control. It is built on clarity. It rests on alignment. It functions through service. And it cannot sit on a divided heart. This is why the narrowing was necessary. Why options fell away. Why distractions lost appeal. A divided soul cannot carry unified authority. Heaven crowns wholeness. You may have imagined the crown as visibility, influence, or recognition. And while those may come, they are not the core of it. The true crown is trust. When God entrusts you with influence without letting influence distort you. When authority flows through you without pride interrupting it. when responsibility increases without intimacy decreasing. That is the crown that lasts. The world crowns quickly and replaces easily. Heaven crowns slowly and removes rarely. Once entrusted, you are expected to steward faithfully. This is why few are crowned and why many admire from a distance without ever stepping into the process required. Your life has been shaped for longevity, not moments, for consistency, not bursts, for impact that continues when attention moves elsewhere. That kind of authority does not come through talent alone. It comes through tested obedience. You have been tested in obscurity, tested in delay, tested in misunderstanding, tested in restraint, tested in seasons where obedience produced no visible reward. And you stayed, you adjusted, you cut off compromise, you learned to listen, you learned to wait, you learned to move when instructed. This is what made room for the crown. But understand this clearly, the crown does not elevate you above others, it anchors you beneath responsibility. Those who are crowned in heaven kneel lower than those who chase status on earth. Authority in the kingdom flows downward, not upward. It serves, it covers, it carries weight quietly. You are not being crowned to escape struggle. You are being crowned to steward it well, to guide others through confusion you have already faced, to stand steady where others are still shaking, to speak with authority because you have lived the cost of obedience. And yes, the crown will attract resistance. Authority always does. But it will also attract grace proportionate to the assignment. You will not be sent without covering. You will not be entrusted without provision. The ancient promise given to those who endure still stands, unaltered by time. The Apostle James declared in his letter, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." Notice the condition: perseverance, not perfection, not popularity, perseverance, standing the test, loving God more than outcome, loving truth more than comfort. This crown is not handed out at the beginning. It is received at the end of endurance. You are closer now than you have ever been. But crowns require maintenance. Authority must be guarded. Alignment must be revisited. The same discipline that brought you here must sustain you forward. This is why humility cannot be abandoned once influence arrives. Pride erodes authority faster than failure ever could. Stay teachable, stay responsive. Stay quick to repent and slow to assume. These are the habits of those who keep what they are given. You will notice something change internally as this season closes. Less striving, more certainty. Less noise, more clarity. Not because life becomes easy, but because division leaves. When obedience becomes settled, peace follows. Peace does not mean absence of warfare. It means absence of confusion about who you are and why you are here. And this is where your story connects to others. You did not walk this path only for yourself. Your endurance becomes evidence for those behind you. Your clarity becomes language for those who feel what you once felt but cannot articulate it yet. Your obedience creates a trail. This is why sharing truth matters. Not to promote a voice, but to point toward alignment. If this message has helped you recognize your season, your responsibility, or your next step, pass it on. Someone else is standing where you once stood, wondering if the pressure means failure or calling. And if these words have walked with you through this journey, if they have sharpened, warned, strengthened, or clarified, stay connected. Subscribe not for content alone, but for continuity. So you remain grounded as seasons shift and assignments unfold. None of this is about building a following. It is about stewarding awakening. The crown reserved for you does not glitter, it governs. It does not shine, it steadies. And it is placed not on those who rush, but on those who remain faithful when nobody is watching. You were awaited in visions not because you were flawless, but because you were willing. Willing to endure, willing to obey, willing to cut off compromise, willing to stand at thresholds, willing to carry weight without recognition. That willingness is what heaven crowns. And now, as this journey closes, understand this. You are not stepping into an ending. You are stepping into assignment. Walk forward steady, remain aligned, guard what you carry. The crown fits because you were shaped to carry it. You do not need to rush away from this moment. Let it settle. Let the weight of what you have heard find its place inside you without being forced into conclusion. Not every ending is meant to close tightly. Some are meant to stay open, like a door left ajar, inviting you to step through when you are ready. You have walked through warning, recognition, preparation, refinement, and responsibility, not as a spectator, but as someone being addressed directly. And now, there is no dramatic command, no final demand, just space. Space for discernment, space for honesty, space for you to decide what this moment becomes. Some will hear these words and move on unchanged. Others will feel something quietly rearrange inside them. Neither response needs to be announced. What matters is what happens after the sound fades. What choices are made when no one is watching? What compromises are refused? What obedience is embraced without applause? An open ending is not uncertainty. It is respect. Respect for your agency. Respect for your timing. Respect for the reality that true alignment cannot be pressured into existence. It must be chosen freely, consciously, and repeatedly. You are not required to prove anything. You are not required to perform. You are not required to respond publicly. If this message resonated, that resonance itself is enough to pause and reflect. And if it did not, that is also information worth holding. If you feel moved to share this with someone who might be standing at a similar threshold, you may. If you feel inclined to stay connected, to listen further, to walk slowly and attentively through what comes next, you may. Nothing here is demanded. Everything here is offered. The path ahead does not need to be mapped fully for you to take the next step. Most of life unfolds that way, clarity emerging as movement begins. Not before. You already know more than you think you do. You have felt the weight of delay, the sharpening of preparation, the narrowing of focus. Those were not accidents. They were signals. So let this ending remain open. Let it breathe. Let it follow you quietly into your next decision, your next conversation, your next moment of stillness. What matters is not how this ends, but how you carry it forward. And when you are ready, if and when you are ready, you will know what to do next.